This is King Coyote. You're listening to the Your Morning Coffee Podcast with my friends Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart. Weekly news for the new music business.
For music business worldwide, UMG sues Believe and TuneCore for $500 million, alleging industrial-scale copyright infringement.
And from The Guardian, Canada orders TikTok to close offices over security risks.
And from music business worldwide, again, Ed Sheeran's speech about Max Lusada is the reason you all got into this business in the first place. I'm always wondering why I got into this business in the first place, Jay, so it's nice that I know that.
Now you know.
So I'm very excited to hear that. That's exactly right. So I say we get the ball rolling right about now.
Stand by for transmission.
This is London calling.
Wake up! The revolution is at hand!
Your morning coffee is on the air. 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 Standing by. Your morning coffee, the weekly music news for the new music business. It's the highly curated, agitated, advocated, moderated, and liberated digital music information that you need to know. We are your digital music authority. And now from our studios in Hollywood, California, here's your hosts, Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart.
With the right line. Spent the last 3 summers doing my time. Your jean jacket on the wall, Tevin River used to hang. Far too young to feel this much pain. Baby, you remind me how good life can be. Blackbird, where you wanna fly tonight? Let's leave this town or get higher than the neon signs.
Well, I certainly like that song from King Coyote. It's the
I do
latest
too.
signal from that Catch Buzz artist and Americana folk act. And that's entitled Blackbird, and that's available everywhere. And that has some very tasty pedal steel going on.
It sure does. What a great song. And thank you, King Coyote, for that. That was super cool. The 67th Grammy nominee list was announced last Friday. This year's list of top nominees include Beyonce with 11 nominations, Charlie XCX with 7, Billie Eilish with 7, Kendrick Lamar with 7, Post Malone with 7, Sabrina Carpenter with 6, Chappell Roan with 6, and Taylor Swift with 6. The award show broadcast will return to LA. That's the Crypto.com Arena on Sunday, February 2nd. We won't be missing that. And it'll broadcast live on CBS and live stream and on demand on Paramount Plus.
Yeah, so last year the big 4 awards were presented to Taylor Swift for Album of the Year. That was Midnights. Miley Cyrus for Record of the Year. That was Flowers. Victoria Monet as a new artist, and What Was I Made For from Barbie, written by Billie Eilish, and Phineas as Song of the Year.
Yeah, so let's walk through the nominees for Album of the Year, Best New Artist, Song of the Year, and Record of the Year. And those last two categories, they can be a little bit confusing. And that is, Song of the Year and Record of the Year. They sound similar. The main difference between the Grammy Awards for Record of the Year and Song of the Year is that Record of the Year recognizes the recording of a song, while Song of the Year recognizes the composition, the writers of the song.
Right. So the nominees for Record of the Year, that, of course, recognizes the performance and production of a song, including the artist, producers, engineers, and other team members. A little band called the Beatles, Now and Then. Of course, that was their song that they kind of pulled out of the vault that John had started. Beyonce's Texas Hold'em, Sabrina Carpenter's Espresso, Charlie XCX 360, Billie Eilish's Birds of a Feather, Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us, Chappell Roan's Good Luck Babe, and Taylor Swift featuring Post Malone on Fortnite.
Right, so that's Record of the Year. Now, Song of the Year, which recognizes the song's composition, including all the songwriters. I'll read you that list, but I also want to list how many songwriters are under each, because I think you'll find this interesting, right? So the first one was Shabuzi, a bar song, Tipsy. Again, this is for Song of the Year, for songwriters. There were 6 songwriters, including Shabuzi, on that track. Beyonce, the Texas Hold'em that you just mentioned, had 6 songwriters, including Beyonce. Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars, Die With a Smile, had 5 songwriters, including Lady Gaga. Sabrina Carpenter's Please, Please, Please had 3 songwriters, including Sabrina. And Taylor Swift, featuring Post Malone, Fortnite, had 3 songwriters, including Taylor Swift. Chappell Roan, Good Luck Babe, had 3 songwriters. And Billie Eilish's Birds of a Feather had 2 songwriters. That was Billy and Phineas. And then the last one was kind of rare. It is Kendrick Lamar, Not Like Us. There was only one songwriter on that, and that's Kendrick Lamar.
It's wild. The Album of the Year nominees from Andre 3000 is New Blue Sun, Cowboy Carter from Beyonce, Short and Sweet from Sabrina Carpenter, Brat from Charlie XCX, DeJesse Volume 4 from Jacob Collier, Hit Me Hard and Soft from Billie Eilish, Chappell Roan, The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess from Chappell Roan, and The Tortured Poets Department, a little record from Taylor Swift, who you may have heard of.
Yes, and then the last one of these categories that they call the Big Four is Best New Artist. And those nominees are Benson Boone, Sabrina Carpenter, Doechii, Kruan Bin, Ray, Chappell Roan, Shabuzi, and Teddy Swims. So there was a piece in Billboard written by Dan Rice, and he talks about Grammy nominations by label. But this is only the Big Four, not across the board. So just those Big Four categories that we just read. And that includes Record of the Year, Song of the Year, Album of the Year, and Best New Artist. Island leads all labels in Big Four nominations, a huge moment for a label that had not been at the table in years. Following Island is Interscope, which racked up 7 Big Four nominations.
Right, so beyond Island and Interscope, many of the rest of the nominations were spread out among several labels. Receiving 3 nods apiece were Republic and Columbia. Empire received 2, as did Warner, Atlantic, and Capitol. And lastly, Epic, Dead Oceans, and Human Resources all received 1 nomination each.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the Grammys. I'm a voting member. Never miss it. And we've seen some really great. Remember that one we watched where I think it was during lockdown?
It was during lockdown.
And they had the car in the middle and people were sort of in the round singing to each other.
Yeah.
They've done some really innovative, cool stuff. So congratulations to the Recording Academy folks and for everybody that was nominated. And before we sort of jump into things this week, I know you and I had read the Ledger newsletter from Billboard, written by Glenn Peoples. And this week, it was really interesting because there was a story in your morning coffee about indies. And the sort of headline for this newsletter was, Indies own nearly half of the global recorded music market. The major labels aren't taking it lying down. Independent artists and labels had a 46.7% share of the global recorded music business in 2023, and that's according to a new media research report, and that's 11 points higher than their U.S. share.
Right. So peering over U.S. borders and the rest of the world, the recorded music business looks like the land of opportunity. The U.S. is certainly lucrative, but it's also hyper competitive. While the three major labels have locked up most of the state's recorded music revenues, don't forget they distribute many indies too.
Right.
They command a far lower share internationally.
Right. And Glenn goes on to write that a new estimate of independent labels' market share shows why major labels' investments and acquisitions in foreign territories are so common. On an ownership basis, independent artists and labels had a 46.7% share, as we mentioned, of the global recorded music business in 2023. And again, that's according to this Media research report, with independent labels taking a 40.8% share, while artist direct distributors like Ditto Music and TuneCore have a 5.9% share. The data collected through an online survey of independent labels accounts for 93% of all global revenues. That leaves 53.3% for the major labels.
Right. So the U.S. is considerably more concentrated. Independent labels and distributors had a 35.7% share of the U.S. market in 2023. That's according to Billboard's analysts of Luminate data. 11 percentage points less than their global share, with the major labels owning the remaining 64.3%. That means that while independent artists and labels were behind the majority of the well over 100,000 new tracks that were being uploaded to digital service providers daily as of early 2023, they only accounted for a bit more than a third of revenue. Very interesting.
Good for the indies, right? That's pretty cool. One other thing, we have a special episode that's dropping this week, and it's based on a book. And we actually had an article in Your Morning Coffee this week about the authors, so it's sort of the timing is right.
So there was an article in the newsletter about a new book that's coming out this week titled Sound Advice, The Ultimate Guide to a Healthy and Successful Career in Music. That's by Music Business Worldwide contributing editor Rhiann Jones and performance health and psychology coach Lucy Haim. You had the pleasure of interviewing Rhiann and Lucy about the book, and we'll be dropping that this week as a special bonus episode, and very important stuff to know about healthy and successful careers in music.
Yeah, and it
can be not that.
Yeah, and it got some really good high marks from folks. David Joseph, who's a former chairman and CEO of Universal Music in the UK, he had really high praise for the book. He said that guidance around health and well-being can often be overwhelming, but Sound Advice, the book, does an excellent job of cutting through the noise on this vitally important subject, as well as demystifying the fundamentals of our industry. Simply put, this is a must-read for anyone starting out in the music business today. Sound Advice, the ultimate guide to a healthy and successful music or a career in music. And we're going to have a special episode dropping in a couple of days, and you can hear for yourself. Fantastic book.
Well, and this goes on the list of just so many great music industry books that have come out in the last couple of years. And we've been blessed to get them, in the first place. And then, of course, we are voracious readers when it comes to books about the business.
Yeah.
So very cool that that's happening. And before we jump into the stories, Jay, I say we thank our sponsors.
Support for the Your Morning Coffee podcast comes from the Mechanical Licensing Collective, the MLC. The MLC is a nonprofit organization that's making a big difference for songwriters, music publishers, and other rights holders by transforming how they receive mechanical streaming royalties from services like Spotify and Apple Music in the U.S. Every month, the MLC collects the streaming data and royalties from those platforms. It matches the money to the creators who earned it and then pays them, or their publishers and administrative partners, the royalties they're due. To date, the MLC has already distributed over $2.5 billion in total royalties and has nearly 50,000 members worldwide. If you're a songwriter, composer, or lyricist with music streaming, or a publisher or administrator, you need to become a member of the MLC to ensure that you're not leaving any money on the table. Best of all, membership is completely free, and the MLC pays out 100% of the royalties it collects. Visit themlc.com to learn more.
Doing great work over there. They certainly are.
Yeah.
We are also sponsored by Soundtrack, music for business. The good news, by the way, is that 33% of consumers discover new music they hear played in businesses such as restaurants, retail, bars, hotels, etc. The bad news is that over 70% of U.S. small and mid-sized businesses are misusing music, resulting in a loss of music to music creators, rights holders, and the music industry to the tune of over $1.3 billion per year in the U.S. alone. Soundtrack is the leading music streaming service for business, providing music to more than 80,000 businesses globally. To learn more, jump over to soundtrack.app/artist-guide.
Right, and we'd also like to thank our friends over at Bandzoogle. Built by musicians for musicians, Bandzoogle is an all-in-one platform. Makes it super easy to build a stunning website and online store for your music in minutes. All the features you need are already built in, including dozens of fully customizable templates, tools to sell your music and merch commission-free crowdfunding and fan subscription features, mailing list tools to grow your fan list, super important, integrations with Bandcamp, SoundCloud, YouTube, Bands in Town, and more, so you can easily add content from your other online profiles, live support from their musician-friendly team 7 days a week. Website plans start at just $8.29 a month, and that includes hosting and your own free custom domain name. Your Morning Coffee podcast listeners can go to bandzoogle.com. Try it for free for 30 days. Just use a promo code MORNINGCOFFEE, all one word, and you'll get 15% off your first year of any subscription. That's bandzoogle.com, promo code MORNINGCOFFEE.
And we are also sponsored by Hypebot. Since 2004, Hypebot has chronicled the new music industry and the trends and technologies that are changing how music is discovered, consumed, marketed, and monetized. It is edited daily by founder Bruce Houghton with help from Alana Bonilla. Hypebot and sister blog Music Think Tank are published by live music and discovery and marketing platform Bands in Town.
Yes, Bands in Town. Over 90 million live music fans trust Bands in Town to get personalized concert alerts, recommendations, and messages from their favorite artists. It's the #1 artist services platform, connecting over 590,000 artists with their superfans. Managers, labels, agencies, and artists access their own dashboard to manage and promote their tour dates across all platforms.
And every week I get to hang out with the man behind the curtain. He is Jay Gilbert. He's a music industry consultant. He's the curator of the weekly Your Morning Coffee newsletter and a former executive with Universal Music, Sony Music, and the Warner Music Groups.
Yes, and if I can spit it out this week, I don't know what's going on with me, but I would love to thank my co-host, Mike Etchart, longtime host of Sound and Vision Radio, formerly of SST Records, Warner Music, Capital EMI, and Universal Music Group. Ooh.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Well, let's jump into the stories, Jay. The first one, really fascinating. It's from Music Business Worldwide. Mandy Delugdug, if I got her name right. Sorry, Mandy, if I did not. UMG sues Believe and TuneCore for $500 million, alleging industrial-scale copyright infringement. Universal Music Group, along with ABCO and Concord Music Group, filed a major copyright infringement lawsuit against Believe and its subsidiary TuneCore last Monday, seeking damages of at least $500 million.
Yeah, this was a hot topic this week. That complaint focuses in part on the dissemination of so-called manipulated audio. You know, that's where they speed something up, slow it down. It alleges that Believe has built its business through, quote, industrial scale copyright infringement, end quote, of the world's most popular copyrighted recordings.
Yikes. Universal Music Group, ABCO, and Concord claim that Believe has achieved significant growth by acting as a hub for distributing unauthorized copies of copyrighted recordings to major platforms including TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and Instagram. UMG and the rest allege often Believe distributes overtly infringing versions of original tracks by famous artists with notations that they are sped up or remixed.
Yeah, a spokesperson for UMG said about the lawsuit, quote, Believe is a company built on industrial scale copyright infringement. Their illegal practices are not limited to cheating artists on major labels, but artists on independent labels as well, including artists on independent labels within the trade bodies of which Believe is itself a member.
Wow. So the lawsuit highlights multiple examples of alleged infringement, including tracks uploaded by, in quotation marks, artists using slightly misspelled versions of famous names such as Kendrick Lamar. Well, you have to kind of see this. Kendrick Lamar with 2 A's in it.
Right.
Ariana Grande misspelled, and Justin Bieber misspelled, and Lady with 2 L's, Gaga.
Yeah, it's crazy. Many of the unauthorized tracks are described as sped up or remixed versions of original recordings by artists, like ABBA, Ariana Grande, Beastie Boys, Bon Jovi, Diana Ross, Drake, Elton John, and many others. Additionally, UMG said that Believe has distributed millions of tracks, more than the combined catalog of major labels and legitimate independent labels. They've distributed these to DSPs.
Wow. So the lawsuit claims, in quotation marks, while Believe is fully aware that its business model is fueled by rampant piracy, it has eschewed basic measures to prevent copyright violations and turned a blind eye to the fact that its music catalog was rife with copyright infringing sound recordings. The case partly focuses on YouTube's Content ID system.
Right. UMG and its co-plaintiffs, they accuse Believe of manipulating the system to, quote, claim ownership of the copyrights in the recordings embodied in these tracks it distributes, and use those systems to monetize uses of those recordings, end quote. Even after losing such disputes on YouTube, alleges UMG, Believe continues to distribute the same infringing tracks on other platforms like Spotify and Apple Music.
So the UMG spokesperson said it's no wonder that Believe has been outspoken against the streaming reform principles for which so many major and independent labels have been advocating. Why? Because such reforms would undermine and expose their system of building scale and market presence by distributing music for which they have no rights and illegally collecting royalties to enrich themselves and their co-conspirators.
Wow. The lawsuit emerges against the backdrop of concerns over unauthorized modified tracks, particularly on TikTok, and it follows UMG's recent confrontation with ByteDance, TikTok's parent company, involving 37,000 takedown requests affecting over 120 million TikTok videos this year. But there was another piece that I'd like to talk about for a second, and that was by Murray Stassen over at Music Business Worldwide. And that headline was, Believe and TuneCore say they strongly refute copyright infringement claims in UMG's $500 million lawsuit, and that they're going to fight them. So in a statement issued to Music Business Worldwide last Tuesday, a Believe spokesperson said that the company and its subsidiary TuneCore strongly refute these claims and the statements made by Universal Music Group, and they're going to fight them. We have developed robust tools and processes to tackle this industry-wide challenge, working collaboratively with partners and peers, and will continue to do so.
Interesting. Well, there was also a guest column in Billboard Thursday by 10-2 Media's founders George Karalexis and Donna Boudica. Why is there so much fraud in music distribution, and how do we solve it? Was the title of it. The rise of DIY music distribution platforms like TuneCore and DistroKid has been unequivocally transformative for artists. It has given them the ability to reach listeners without traditional label constraints.
Yeah, but they go on to say that yet while democratization has opened doors for countless artists, it also opened doors on these floodgates to an equally pernicious unintended byproduct, which is rampant fraud and copyright infringement. For context, Luminate reported that in 2023, over 120,000 new songs were uploaded daily, a sharp increase from the 93,000 per day the previous year. The surge is predominantly due to two things: the ubiquity and growth of the DIY distribution sector and the proliferation, that's easy for you to say, of consumer-facing music production resources. This relatively nascent landscape has dramatically increased not only the volume of the content, but also the industry's exposure to unauthorized and infringing material.
So Universal Music Group's recent $500 million lawsuit against TuneCore and its parent company Believe highlights the severity as well as a tipping point. The lawsuit asserts that these platforms are illegally profiting from large-scale copyright infringement, where the culprit for disseminating and monetizing the unauthorized IP is both distributor and unethical user alike. Ultimately, this case highlights a broader systemic failure exacerbated by insufficient monitoring, accountability, and safeguards for control. But the ecosystem has become too big, too unregulated, and too profitable for some of its stakeholders to rectify it on their own. Reform is overdue.
There it is. DIY distribution has become a breeding ground for exploitation. Malicious users take advantage of the low barrier to entry by uploading pirated, remixed, slightly modified versions of copyrighted songs. Collectively, these uploads generate significant revenue, with a portion of that going to the distributors who host them. So I don't know. We're going to have to see how this pans out, because UMG is saying, look, you're using our copyrighted material. You're trying to fake people out by making them think that this is, artists like Ariana Grande, when it's clearly not. But then you're listening to sort of this editorial on it where it sounds like, can it really be policed? With the sheer volume. I know they said, what was that, 120,000 songs. Really what's happening is it's, ISRC codes that are uploaded. I was at a Spotify presentation recently, and they said their most current number is 105,000 tracks that are uploaded on average every day. But it doesn't matter. What matters is it's a fire hose of all of this content. And it's going to be really challenging because there's so many people who want to game the system. I hope that this comes out that it was an inadvertent thing and it wasn't a deliberate thing and people didn't actually know from Believe and did it anyway.
And I'm also wondering about the publishing side of things. You've uploaded tracks to these services before, and it very clearly, you have to put in publishing data as well. And yet this is all being handled on the label side. I wonder if they're also, they must be getting, screwing over the publishers as well. But it just sure seems like you could have, when you're very clearly, changing the letters just a little bit of these artist names, that you can easily make some changes in the code to recognize things like this. But again, like you said, it's a fire hose of stuff that's just being uploaded every day, and it seems like there should be back-end things that would kind of identify these things, but perhaps not.
But
and maybe this is kind of a shot over the bow.
It's like whack-a-mole, though. They get so much better at sort of dodging the system. And I can tell you that with some distributors, you're not putting in publishing because you don't necessarily have it yet. You don't have that ISWC code yet. It's sort of reconciled by the PROs on the backside. But, there have to be better safeguards. But right now, it's really challenging to stay on top of all of this. So it'll be super interesting to see how this case develops.
Yeah, well, and sort of, again, another fascinating story, this last one from The Guardian, Dan Milmo, who's the global technology editor. Canada orders TikTok to close offices over security risks, in quotation marks. Canada has ordered TikTok to shut down its operations in the country after conducting a security review. But users will not be barred from accessing the video app or uploading content to it. The Canadian government said it was demanding the winding up of TikTok's business in the country due to specific national security risks. It currently has offices in both Vancouver and Toronto.
So to be clear, they're not shutting down TikTok. They're making them close their offices. I thought that was really interesting. According to Francois Philippe Champagne, that's Canada's Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, he said that the decision was based on the information and evidence collected over the course of the review and on the advice of Canada's security and intelligence community and other government partners.
So Champagne added that the government was not blocking citizens' access to TikTok or their ability to post content on the platform. TikTok has been banned from government-issued phones in Canada, the US, the UK, the New Zealand, and Australia amid concerns about the Chinese-owned app's access to user data.
Yeah, Champagne's statement didn't give details, the security concerns they're talking about, but it referred to risks related to ByteDance, the parent company, that's the Beijing-based owner of TikTok, and its operations in Canada through TikTok Technology Canada.
Right. So Champagne said it is important for Canadians to adopt good cybersecurity practices and assesses the possible risks of using social media platforms and applications, including how their information is likely to be protected, managed, used, and shared by foreign actors.
Right. A TikTok spokesman said that shutting down TikTok's Canadian offices and destroying hundreds of well-paying jobs, it's not in anybody's interest. And today's shutdown order will just do that. We will challenge this order in court. TikTok takes data privacy concerns very seriously.
TikTok faces the threat of a full ban in the U.S., where the White House has introduced a law that gives ByteDance until January 19th to sell its stake in the platform to an approved buyer. Otherwise, the app will be shut down. President-elect Donald Trump, who tried to force the sale of TikTok during his first administration, has said on the campaign trail that he would save it.
Well, the last thing I'll say on this is that TikTok has also launched a lawsuit against the United States, arguing that it breaches the First Amendment protecting free speech. So again, the headlines that we've read this week were a little bit misleading. It made people believe that TikTok was being shut down in Canada. And really what's happening is they're shutting down a couple of offices and some people are losing their jobs. But TikTok is still very much alive and well in Canada.
Sure is, yeah. But we'll be talking about it a lot more, for the next coming weeks, months, and years for sure. Our last story from Music Business Worldwide. Ed Sheeran's speech about Max Lusada is the reason you all got into this business in the first place. Outgoing Warner Music CEO of recorded music, Max Lusada, was honored with the Sir George Martin Award at Music Business Worldwide's Music Business UK Awards in London last week.
Yeah, if you hadn't read, Max was one of those, unfortunately, that was let go from Atlantic recently. So the person presenting Max Lusada with that award, of course, was Ed Sheeran. And what Ed said will go down in music industry lore. It mattered. Here's what Ed Sheeran said about Max Lusada. Hopefully it reminds you all why you started your journey in the music business. It certainly did that for us. And again, this is from Music Business Worldwide.
Right. So he said, my dream was always to be on Atlantic Records because Atlantic Records has the best singer-songwriters. All my heroes and all the people that I aspired to be were all housed there. When I first met Max, I told him this. I was a little bit intimidated because he was the big dog and it shaped all of my heroes' careers.
Right. Ed goes on to say that, but I was over the moon when it ended up being my home with him at the big ship's helm. I went through Asylum with Ed Howard, and Ben Cook. But Max worked from afar on my first album and then very closely on my second. And from then on,
he said, we both hit our career highs together, which is something that I won't ever forget. It's mad going through all the years and all the artists that I've met along the way who all say, oh yeah, Max did this for me, and Max was instrumental in this. Everyone from The Darkness to Stormzy to James Blunt, Coldplay, Dua Lipa, and beyond. When I got asked to introduce this award tonight, Max had just been let go by Warner, and I wanted to make sure that I was here to say they don't make people like him anymore. Music people.
Right, and if they do, they come around once in a generation. It's not about having a big marketing brain or being good at algorithms or jumping on the new hot things. It's about recognizing what are great songs and who are great artists and allowing them to grow and not just dropping them after 2 duff singles. All the legacy artists we know and love today were developed over time and allowed to explore and fail and build and experiment. The industry is at risk of becoming reactionary rather than just following heart and gut feelings on things that are just good.
So Ed ended it by saying, I really hope young people who are like Max are nurtured in the future, because for real art to thrive, we need real people like him in the music industry fighting for it. I'm so proud of what we've achieved together and more proud to be able to call him a friend and someone that I have an immense amount of respect for, both personally and professionally. Congrats on this amazing honor, man, and let's celebrate it tonight. I can't wait to see what you do next. Make sure you cut me in, by the way. Everyone makes some noise for the winner of tonight's Sir George Martin Award, Max Lusada. What a lovely, lovely sentiment. Boy, oh boy, boy.
Yeah, that was really, really cool. They have videos, not of the whole thing, but there are excerpts on YouTube that I found, and it was very heartfelt. And Max's response was equally as heartfelt. So thank you, Ed Sheeran, and thank you to our friends over at Music Business Worldwide for that wonderful piece.
Yeah, well, and it's, I think every generation goes through saying the same things about certain people, and it's still nice to see that there are, as we call them, just music people that, really stand up for artists and do the right thing when it comes to marketing and promotion and sticking with artists. And
it's old school,
It is as old school as it gets.
Unfortunately, it's cyclical, and we're going through this cycle now where, there's cost cutting and there's layoffs, and unfortunately, this is a byproduct of that, but I'm confident that what goes around comes around.
I hope so, yeah. All right, so it's time to wrap up the show. If you enjoy the show, by the way, please tell one friend. Both Jay and I would certainly appreciate it. Big thanks to the MLC soundtrack, Bandzoogle, Hypebot, and Bands in Town. We certainly appreciate their contributions every week.
We sure do.
Couldn't do it without them. So on that note, on behalf of Jay Gilbert and myself, Mike Etchart, we both say thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week on the Your Morning Coffee Podcast.
You've been listening to Your Morning Coffee, the weekly music news program for the new music business. Join Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart next time for the digital music news you need to know.